If I asked investors to give me the name of the most disappointing tech stock of the last 10 years, I can almost guarantee you the name they'd say is Intel. It feels like Intel has done nothing but let investors down for years. And with the most recent price action, with them dropping 40+% over the last year, it's time for us to ask the question, is Intel done, or is this an opportunity? Is it time for us as investors to step in and take this discount? Well, today we're going to be talking about exactly that question. And I got a lot of the inspiration for this from an article on Seeking Alpha that I will be referencing at many points throughout the video that I just wanted to walk through with you guys, talk about my thoughts, and really get into this question, because the article brought up some interesting points, talks about some rumors, talks about some stuff that I didn't know originally about this whole Intel situation, and it gives me a little bit of clarity on why any investor, Canadian or otherwise, might be interested in this stock. Welcome to Golden Arch Investing. My name is Liam, and if you like investing, particularly Canadian investing, please do subscribe to this channel. It makes a huge difference and doesn't cost anything. Now, today's topic is obviously south of the border. We're talking about Intel, big American giant, but this is a stock that most Canadians know well. The challenge, of course, for these investors, Canadian or otherwise, is that a stock can keep dropping. So if Intel maybe is nearing its bottom, we can't be certain that that's where it's going to stop, or if it'll just continue to lose money forever. And so we need to make some really tough decisions and make some shrewd moves if we plan on stepping into this space. The reason I picked this specific article that I'm going to be referencing on the screen right beside me, I'll put it up on the screen for you guys, is two key reasons. So the first, it gives me some of the bullish case for Intel, which I thought was important because every piece of news I see is bearish on Intel. The second thing is that it gave me a potential bottom, which I thought was the most important thing. Thanks to this article, thanks to what this author pointed out, I now understand that there is actually a base under which the price of Intel stock probably won't drop, which gives investors a much nicer risk-return ratio than it had been previous. And of course, you can see it in the title right here of this article. The base case here, the very bottom, comes thanks to acquisition. And so let's go through some of the most interesting points that I see in this article. Now, the first really interesting point here is that deep value can be extracted from Intel in an acquisition. And what does this author mean by that? Well, as you can see, Intel's market cap has shrunk incredibly low. And since it has deep value that could potentially be unlocked, just in their CPU business alone, it is easily possible for an acquisition to swoop in and purchase Intel once the price is cheaper than the value of that segment on its own. Of course, CPUs are hardly a new product. There is basically a duopoly in this space, right? We've got AMD on the one side, and we've got Intel on the other. And I mean, if you could own a good chunk of the CPU business, that's a huge part of the AI world, the tech world, the sort of chip world in general. Like, you could own a huge chunk. I'm thinking about the kinds of companies that might be interested in that. Now, obviously, it could be someone like a TSMC that would be interested in purchasing that, but I think it's more likely to see one of the big tech giants step in on something like that. Give them the opportunity to maybe, using money that they could probably afford, pick up a competitive advantage over their competitors. However, there is one point that I see that I don't see actually here in this article, and it's all about ARM. Now, if you don't know, there has been a recent boom in ARM-based laptop computers powered by chips from a third-party, Qualcomm, which has the potential to take some of that duopoly power in the CPU world, at least, off the table. Do I guarantee this is going to happen? Absolutely not. No guarantees that these ARM-based Qualcomm computers with the Snapdragon chips are gonna necessarily pick up enough market share to be a real competitor. But it could maybe make the whole idea that, you know, the value is baked in here thanks to the duopoly in question. Second interesting point from this author. Intel has potential as a fab competitor to TSMC. At face value right now, Intel does not have a shot. But with serious investment and considering the incredible geopolitical challenges TSMC faces, it's not unreasonable to think that sometime in the next 5-10 years, TSMC could be in such a difficult position that Intel actually does catch up. It wasn't that long ago that Intel was superior. And this investing space, especially in the tech space, is very much what have you done for me recently, but Intel was on top at one point and not that long ago. So seeing them pick back up and catch up to TSMC is not insane. There's also the potential that TSMC is outcompeted in specific areas. Now, I know the author doesn't talk too much about this in here, but there are so many companies out there that are fabricating different kinds of chips for different things. You could see Intel, yes, they have their CPU business, but there might be other components that are going to be considered critical that the US wants manufactured there that Intel could sort of pick up on. It's possible that Intel continues to see big investments from the US government and they're given advantages there. It could be possible that TSMC, of course, runs into some serious geopolitical challenges and their Taiwan-based fabs are taken offline. So always the potential that there is some sort of big event that happens that causes TSMC to either drop or Intel to rise, and all of a sudden we're in a position where Intel does actually outcompete. Okay, let's dive into some of the scenarios that the author puts up here as their sort of predictions for Intel's future. And the first one on here that I think is really interesting, and he splits it into two, but it's acquisition. Scenario one, an acquirer comes out of the woodwork. He points out, like I was saying earlier, Mag 7 giants would probably make the most sense. All of these customers of NVIDIA, of TSMC, they do have an incentive if they're gonna continue spending huge money to make their own chips and capture some of the savings themselves. Now, there's always the sort of like Apple direction you could go with this, where they outsource the actual manufacturing of the chip to TSMC, but they designed their chips, their M chips, right? Very famously, like, oh, they dropped Intel and made their own, and they're fantastic, I gotta say. But there is a chance that one of these other Mag 7 giants is like, no, I'm gonna make it in-house and I'm gonna save money and I'm gonna use, my size and my scale and my capital to make this happen. There's also a chance that there is like a bidding situation. He talks about a bidding war, all sorts of things going on. Microsoft is specifically mentioned here, thanks in part to their sort of shared history. I do think this would make a lot of sense. Microsoft has some insane cash flows. They got a lot of money they could be spending. I wouldn't count anyone else out though. I could see an Amazon or even a Meta if they're committing to the AI wars, let's call them, or they're committing to the AI hardware build out that is currently up in the air right now. You could see them maybe being willing to step in. Scenario number two, all on its own. Intel turns it around. And you know what? This is the scenario that if I'm going to buy Intel, I'm banking on personally. Just because I think this is the scenario that provides the most upside potential. Just think about where Intel has been in the last couple of years. I'll throw a chart up on the screen for you guys. But just imagine if they could get back to those kinds of levels, right? Where they're pulling in profits, they've caught up to competitors, and all of a sudden, just think about the kind of profits investors could be making. It would be absolutely massive. And of course, the author points that out, right? There is always the chance to turn around the business. Intel has been on top in the not so recent past. It's all just about direction. And I think that at the end of the day, this author points out two really important things. There is a chance that Intel gets its act together and actually manages to compete in the AI world and manages to step back up and puts himself back on top. But number two, the important thing is that while trying to catch a falling knife is crazy, if you know where the floor is, it's not all that wild. And with Intel's floor really being that CPU business, right? As long as they keep producing that segment, that will represent the floor for Intel. And so what I would do here, and I've got some notes that I just want to talk through, but I do really think that there is a solid thesis to buy Intel at this point. I do think this is a solid American turnaround play. It's a company that's very much benefited from like US sort of national security programs. Is it going to benefit from their current economic programs? I don't know. There's definitely the case that this is a vital American business and that the United States will prop it up regardless. And so the government will sort of step in and create a floor. There's a case for one of these American-based Mag 7 giants to purchase Intel. And I think it would probably go through just because the US wants to keep this business alive and in-house. And so I really do think that, you know, as time goes on, we're going to see the floor materialize, and it'll just take one or two big moments for Intel, right? They got to make one breakthrough, right? They gotta, you know, finally start producing at a similar nanometer scale to TSMC. So I'm talking getting their chips to the same sort of level of efficiency as TSMC. And if their fabs catch up and you see that headline, then I think we all know where this stock price is going. So I think this is a solid case for a turnaround. Definitely speculative. This is not a core position for anyone. Please don't do that to yourself. And I think there's substantial risk. I would not invest in this without looking a little bit deeper and having some serious clarity on the direction of the company that'll come when the new CEO steps in at some point in the future. And you know what? When I see that clarity, when I see those things come through, I will talk about it on here and update you guys because I think it's really interesting. And I think it's worth looking at. And that's about all I have for you folks today. If you enjoyed the video, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with this author? I think they've got some interesting points. I don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I'm 100% confident that the floor has been set and it's okay to buy. But once it is set, once we do know, I think it could be really cool. So let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And do you think Intel is a good option for a turnaround play? Are there other turnaround plays that you are seeing in the markets out there that might be interesting over the next couple of years? Would love to hear from you guys. And with that, I hope I see you in the next video.